So blessings. Let's talk about Venus ingressing into Leo. Quite a few things to share on that topic. And this topic is really a very powerful topic because of the nature of a Venus-Pluto opposition. And also Venus is going to retrograde in Leo. So I'm just going to really today, I want to focus on her presence in Leo being opposite Pluto and actually square the nodes and a couple of other things. And then I'm going to come back and talk about the retrograde morning star, Venus in Leo, probably in the next couple of weeks. And just a couple of other things that I would like to share. I'm currently working on some new material on Venus. And what I'm doing is I'm gathering some old teachings, old wisdom from Babylonian astrology and understanding Venus in those teachings, which corresponds to the pentagram, by the way, the Venus star points and so forth, but it has a different there's a different approach, and the work is actually coming from Rumen Kolev. Some of you may have heard of him, and I'm actually going to bring him onto my YouTube channel pretty soon. We've made a bit of a connection, and so I just wanted to let you guys know that's something pretty exciting that's going to be coming up soon. And subsequently down the road, I'm going to create a new Venus webinar where I'm going to bring forth the Babylonian teachings of Venus in that way of assessing the pentagram, the Venus star points, and probably combine it actually with my own understanding on an evolutionary level, and also the normal way we kind of work with the Venus star points as well. So I'm just trying to bring that all together in my own stream of consciousness, and how I'm going to bring that all together into one webinar. It's it's a big job, so it's going to be probably quite a long webinar, but it's something that I'm really excited about and just working on at the moment. It's a labor of love, of course, because it's Venus. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that's something coming up that many of you probably would be interested in. So I'll keep you guys informed as to when that will all go ahead. We had an earthquake last night here in Melbourne, Australia. Someone mentioned it on my YouTube channel in the community, which of course I knew because I felt it. My whole apartment literally shifted. Well, the whole building did actually. So I felt it I was literally sitting on the couch with my little sweetheart Coco, and she because animals feel things before they even happen, and I saw her. It wasn't even a rational sort of linear thing. It was just I just felt her energy being something was going on, and then all of a sudden within a second my whole apartment just started shaking, and I didn't actually know what was going on at the time. I thought, was that an earthquake? What the hell was going on? Did somebody just run up the hallway? And then I thought, no, somebody's footsteps running up the hallway is not going to cause my whole apartment shake. But the reason I thought that is because the walls are very thin here, and when people do run down this hallway, I can actually, it does create a bit of a what's the word, reverberation. I can't remember if that's the right word, but anyway, my apartment sort of shakes a bit. But that shake last night was pretty intense, and so I'm only bringing it up because I always like to look at the astrology for things, and I just wanted to show you guys just how literal the astrology is in this case. So I'm currently located in Melbourne, Australia, and so what I'm going to show you is the national chart of Australia and what happened. So let's have a look-see. Okay, so inside wheel, national chart of Australia, and the thing that your eyes should go to immediately is transiting Uranus right on the natal moon of Melbourne, well, Australia. And so, you know, when we have earthquakes, the first thing that we always go to is Uranus, because Uranus is the corresponding significator for things like earthquakes, shakes, shocks, shock waves, etc. And there it is there. Uranus conjunct the natal moon of the national chart of Australia, and the moon, of course, rules the IC Cancer, right? So the foundation, the roots, the ground, the homes, you know, the land, right? It all got a shockwave. And the earthquake that happened last night, apparently it's the largest earthquake we've had in 120 years. So that's really interesting. It's very literal, very straightforward, and often when you have earthquakes in certain parts of the world, and you can get your hands on the national chart of that location, you will see Uranus prominent. It's highly unlikely that you wouldn't, actually. So I was expecting to see something by Uranus, and there it is. So I expect we're going to see maybe more of this moving forward, because that transit, I'm not sure how long it's going to be there. I'd need to double check that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we experience more of those things. And certainly, you know, on other levels, it's going to speak very much to security and money and homes and family, and lots of unpredictable, unexpected things that will happen, some of which, you know, I suspect won't be great and won't be easy. But then on the other hand, you know, Uranus is the planet of revolutions, revelations, the liberator. So I'm hoping that it's going to bring a greater sense of revolutions, revelations, and equality of some kind, because there's just such an extreme imbalance. And I know that's happening collectively on every corner of the earth, as it were. And in this case, I'm specifically speaking to people's homes, you know, people who rent, which is the majority of people, people's sense of security and so forth, because there's I think we've got, you know, more homeless people now than we've ever had in the entire history of Australia. There's just so many homeless people. It used to be that most homeless people belong to, and this is not a judgment, this is just, you know, stating the facts. It used to be that homeless people were more of the what's considered the lower economic society group of people, if you like, people who you know, just come from backgrounds where they didn't have the appropriate supportive upbringing structure and so forth. Then drugs and alcohol come into the mix, mental health issues, you know, lack of education, not able to find work, you know, all those sorts of things. But now people who are highly educated, people who even have PhDs, whatever it may be, are finding themselves homeless, believe it or not. You know, it actually has gone to that level. It's very severe what's happening here. And I know that's happening all around the world. I'm not saying that, you know, poor Australia, it's happening everywhere. So, but the point is that with Uranus, transiting Uranus, hitting off the moon of Australia's national chart, which rules the IC, that's quite significant. I think we're going to see some pretty significant changes. So just small side note that I wanted to point to, particularly for the earthquake matter. Alrighty, so let's go into the chart for the ingression of Venus into Leo, immediately forming an opposition to Pluto. It's quite interesting because she's actually sitting right at the midpoint of goddess Lilith and Mars in Leo. So she's contained within those energies as well. She's not only opposite Pluto, but she's sandwiched in between Lilith and Mars as well. These are very, very intense energies, right? Very intense energies. Pluto is the soul, it's the highest will. It's many other things, which I'll get to in a moment. Mars is the lower will, if you like, the will of the personality, desires, passions, and things like that. it's how we actualize our willpower in our everyday life, really. But Mars is, you know, the planet of war, the planet of anger, the planet of conflict, you know, the planet of violence and all those sorts of things. On the other hand, it's the planet of passion, you know, taking action on things, energy, you know, willpower, all that sort of stuff. And Lilith, you know, she's the outcast, right? In our societies, as it were. So yeah, I'll get to more significators of that little combination over there in a moment, but I just wanted to just start off by drawing some context and saying, okay, well, this is what's going on. Venus is opposite Pluto. This is the first time we're experiencing Venus opposite Pluto in Leo and Aquarius, because we haven't lived in this lifetime having had Pluto in Aquarius. So it's a pretty significant portal of transformative energy in our lifetime, because it's the first time we're meeting this portal, as it were. And it is, of course, all happening in relation to squaring the nodes as well. So there's this grand cross configuration, and Jupiter is there too, right? So there's a few energies all coming into this grand, this is called a grand fixed cross. Now, a grand fixed cross is a particular aspect pattern. Some people have that in their natal chart. They're born with an aspect pattern called a grand cross. It could be a fixed cross, it could be a mutable, or it could be a cardinal. In this case, it's a fixed cross. The fixed cross is probably one of the most difficult ones to work through, because the fixed signs are the most difficult to move, to shift, right? And they're all different. As you know, we have Leo is one fixed sign, Scorpio is another, Aquarius is another, and then Jupiter is the other. And they are all fixed signs, but they are fixed in different ways as per their meaning in terms of the archetype itself. So, you know, Scorpio is extremely fixed, but it's also the archetype that corresponds to the deep desire to transform things, right? And the opposite to that, Taurus, being the one typically that is strongly associated to attachment, right? That's why its shadow is Scorpio. It shows that, you know, the path of releasing and removing attachments and things like that. So each fixed sign operates differently in a fixed nature, but when they all come together in a grand fixed cross, there's something very powerful that needs to be moved and shifted, that we may be connected to in terms of our own fixed patterns in our behaviors, in our lifestyle choices. Some of that could be, you know, very unconscious, just very conditioned patterns that we have. And the cardinal, the fixed grand cross here is implying the volume of intensity that brings things into a really intense focus within ourselves, if this is activated for us, of course, and gets us, I think, to focus on our own fixed ways and fixed patterns, and how we might actually find a way to transform these fixed patterns, if you like. So that the nature of the fixed cross is bringing it to our attention, if you like, pointing to what's inherently there, or what conditioned fixed patterns we have and how we might move through them. And the next level is, of course, well, what are the planets that are involved here? And the main ones really that I want to point to is the the Venus Pluto. But we also, I think, need to acknowledge the presence of Jupiter and Mars, of course, as well, and the nodes, but fundamentally the Venus Pluto, because this Venus Pluto opposition, it's extremely powerful for a number of different reasons, but it's also worth considering where where did this conjunction begin? So when were Venus and Pluto conjunct? And it was back in January of this year, of 2023. They were conjunct in the sign of Capricorn. So the conjunction always speaks to the beginning of something new, the birth of something new, planting new seeds. So you don't really know what to expect at the conjunction point. It was a new phase conjunction. So at this point, we are now at an opposition, but Pluto has moved into a new sign. So this is a new portal, right? A completely new energy. Let me just give some comments and some keywords and phrases to the energy of the combination of Pluto and Venus. Now, if you are a native who has a Pluto-Venus opposition, then this energy is pretty familiar to you. You know, it should be, at least, anyway. So that doesn't mean that you won't experience this as a powerful transit. You might even experience it even more powerfully than others who don't have the opposition in their chart. These fine-tuning elements really depend on you and your birth chart, right? And where you're at in your life at the moment. So when Pluto meets Venus, he's always going to bring in the deep journey and process of a deep metamorphosis, a deep journey of transformative experiences. And those are not easy. Any planet that Pluto touches, and especially the personal planets, it's very rarely an easy experience. Naturally, the aspect between the planets is going to describe whether that journey is going to be conflicting or challenging, or whether one is going to potentially resist what's being called, what Pluto is calling us to face. Because Pluto, being the soul, being the ruler of Scorpio, being the ruler of the 8th house, it takes us into those parts of our psyche that where we have some resistances and some fears, and where we fear things like betrayal and loss and abandonment, right? It takes us into those components within us that for many people are very unconscious. For others, it's felt more obviously or more acutely, you know, just more aware of those dynamics within, especially if you've got, you know, a lot of planets in Scorpio, strong 8th house emphasis, that's always kind of lurking in the background. But, you know, even though those are very key themes, mostly unconsciously, the Scorpio archetype is always seeking to basically metamorphosize from the scorpion to the snake, to the eagle, to the phoenix, right? Scorpio has those 4 archetypes connecting with it, those archetypal animal symbols. And they are very powerful when you understand them, because they really do describe that metamorphic journey, you know, of people who have strong Scorpio in their chart, or, you know, powerful Pluto in their chart. Even if you don't have any Scorpio planets and you have Pluto aspecting your personal planets, you undergo these sorts of journeys, you know, where you might be the scorpion one day and then, you know, at another time you might be the eagle, you know, the phoenix rising from the ashes. The scorpion would be the more probably the lowest kind of level. And that's not a judgment or a criticism. That's just a fact of the nature of Scorpio. When it's operating from an unconscious level, you know, think about what the scorpion does. You know, it attacks and it stings you, right? So, you know, it's really about evolving those lower shadow qualities, personality components that are still very unconscious. So when Pluto comes to Venus, you know, these sorts of themes are activated within our own psyche, right? And where are they activated? They are activated right smack bang into our relationships, our friendships, family connections as well. So all our relationships, basically, Venus describes all our relationships with our children, you know, with our siblings, lovers, husbands, wives, whatever, just all relationships. And then, of course, you know, Venus also has the component to her that corresponds to the world of creativity, the artistic components and qualities to our self-expression and our life. Now, creativity, creation, which is the number 5, which is the 5th house, which is Venus, 5 Venus star points. You know, when you look at the 5th harmonic chart for yourself, there are harmonic charts, right? There are countless of them, actually, which all derive from aspects, essentially. Each harmonic speaks to a very specific vibration. Vibration is Venus. The 5th harmonic is the vibration of Venus and speaks to, it is the chart to look at when you're wanting to, I know I've sidetracked a bit, but this is important. It is the chart that speaks to your creative potential and prospects and so forth. But fundamentally, the 5th harmonic chart shows how you seek to express yourself, period. And Venus is in Leo, so I think these sorts of themes are very important while Venus is in Leo, right? Being the archetype of the completely self-actualized self in its full potential, its full self-actualized potential in expression, creation, creativity. It's got tremendous confidence. Venus in Leo, she has tremendous confidence and power in this sign, right? So let's just, I'm going to read from this book here, which is The Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. It's definitely a great book to have if you're serious about astrology and you don't have too many books. This is one that and even if you do have too many books, this is one that's worth having in your library for sure. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're advanced, this book is suitable for anyone on that spectrum, right? Principles, deep, intense, this is Venus-Pluto principles, deep and intense passions, renewing and regenerating forces in relationships, the power of love and the drive to unite, the interplay of beauty and the beast, a tendency toward obsessive attractions, feelings of jealousy and possessiveness, passive aggression or manipulation, a love of power. Character and themes, primal feelings of love and attraction, deep and intense passion, the sense of a positive fatedness operating in one's partnerships. Now, he's speaking to these themes as being reflected through a Pluto-Venus combination in your birth chart, but we can apply these same thoughts and considerations to a transit as well. We're talking about the same 2 planets in an aspect to each other, right? And I've always known, because I have a Venus-Pluto hard aspect in my chart, I've always known that my relationships, every single one of them has been fated. No 2 ways about it. I absolutely know that in the core of my being, in my heart of hearts, in deep in my soul. I've always known that. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to mention that because if you have a Venus-Pluto aspect, then you would relate to that. And I guess then with this Pluto-Venus transit, Pluto opposite Venus, there can be fated or destined relationships that either come to an end or come into your life at this time. It's possible, even with this transit that's only there for a few days. But of course, if that were to happen, I would expect that there are lots of other things going on in your birth chart that speak to matters of relationship. So things happening to your seventh house, to your own Venus. You might be in a seventh perfected year with annual perfections. You might be in a Venus Fidario relative to Fidario periods. You might have a prominent secondary progressed Venus aspect going on. These are all things that you would assess and look to if you wanted to assess what's happening in my love life, what's happening in my world of relationships, right? Okay. A big and deep heart. Oh God, that's so true. A big and deep heart. Yeah. An embrace of the healing power of love. God, I love that. That's so true. Emotional and social healing. When there is great love, there are always miracles. That's beautiful. An instinct for approaching dark or heavy situations with grace and kindness, a capacity to love those in crises, an undenying love that transcends all darkness, emotional death and rebirth, the interplay of beauty and the beast, fair and foul and near of kin, and fair needs fell. I cried. Profound artistic gifts, creative potency and passion, primal art and beauty, healing beauty, persuasive sex appeal, Dionysian charisma, the drive to unite, the healing power of sexuality. I can absolutely say that I relate to every single one of those statements with my Venus-Pluto aspect. I wonder how many of you relate to that. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you have a Venus-Pluto and if those comments speak to you. And even if you don't, these comments are all part and parcel of this Venus-Pluto transit to some extent. Shadow qualities, overbearing sweetness or friendliness, a manipulative yin style, passive forms of aggression, a pushy or obnoxious aesthetic, a love of power, infatuation, urges to control one's friends and loved ones, intense projections, damaging one's relationships, romantic obsessions, dangerous or forbidden love, harmful temptations, sexual addictions, throwaway relationships, urge to use sex or beauty for ulterior purposes, a habit of destroying what one loves, loving what is lost or dead, and the shadow side of beauty, dangerous beauty, the challenging side of being too beautiful, feelings of jealousy and possessiveness, a sense of betrayal. Love is a fire, but whether it is going to warm your heart or burn down your house, you can never tell. I disagree with that. I can tell. Perhaps when I was younger, I couldn't tell as much as I can tell now, but yeah, Pluto's got X-ray vision. And for me, Pluto aspects everything in my chart. Like I've said numerous times, at the moment, Pluto's on my ascendant. So I'm seeing, and I think this started actually, not I think, it did. It started when my father transcended this world, and I had this, I really don't know how to articulate this, but I had these experiences where I was seeing, it's like as soon as my dad took his last breath, which is the most, that is the most spiritual sound. To hear your loved one's last breath, there's something so untouchable, ineffable. Ineffable is probably the best word, which just literally means there's no words to describe that particular experience. When that happened, I literally saw myself, felt myself go into the underworld, into Pluto's world. And that's not just words, that's an actual experience that happened. And I haven't completely come up out of there yet. And now that Pluto's on my ascendant, that's probably going to be me coming out of that underworld. But anyway, the point to mentioning all of that is that with strong Pluto integration, there is an ability to see other worlds and other dimensions, and the sides to people and situations that are hidden, whether intentionally or otherwise. Pluto people can see straight through. It's just one of the gifts of Pluto. I'll continue on with some of the shadow qualities. Vulgar or coarse sexuality, a raunchy or crude style, sexuality as a dark continent, mixtures of pleasure and the perinatal plutonic themes of suffering, aggression, demonic energies, pyrocatharsis, transcendence, ambivalent attraction and repulsion, the dark side of coming close. It is not a fragment world. The arts, deeply beautiful nature, sexuality as a force of cosmic dimensions, organisms that kill their mates or die after copulation. Praying mantis? Yeah. Primal and powerful art, Dionysian art and music, intense and profound harmonies, titanic music, the torments of art, cinema, themes of passion, seduction, prostitution, pornography, wild energies, obsession, betrayal or rape, comedy of endearing badness, love gone bad, femme fatale, you know, all those sorts of things, actors with a smouldering appeal, seductive minxes, great lovers and so forth. Spiritually, Eros and Thanatos, both Greek words, Eros coming from the word erotic, which is that deep erotic love, primal erotic love, and Thanatos actually means death. So Eros and Thanatos, Beauty and the Beast, desire, death, love as a cosmic force, Shakti energy. Yeah, it's interesting because my Facebook name used to be Anastasia Shakti Zoe a few years ago. I had that as my name for a very long time. And as I said, I've got a Venus-Pluto aspect, so yeah. There's no coincidences, you know, there's only synchronicities. Remember the word coincidence, which is two words, coincide, just means that two things coincide. In other words, two things are meeting or lining up in, you know, at the exact time that they are supposed to. That's what coincidence means. We're just used to hearing the word coincidence being used in a very superficial manner in the consensus world, but the true word really the meaning of coincidence really just points to synchronicity. Okay. The sexual power of the feminine principle in Greco-Roman mythology, sacred temple, prostitutes of the matriarchal era who taught sexual mysticism, tantra, all sorts of deities, Ishtar, Padma, goddesses of sexual dominance such as Kali, Lilith, you know, these are all feminine deities that emanate from a Venus-Pluto energy portal aspect, transit, or in your natal chart, for instance. Underworld or abducted goddess such as Kore, Persephone. Kore is it's a Greek word, kori, which means daughter. And as we know, Persephone was abducted by Pluto into the underworld, right? Helen of Troy, a few others. that's enough. He's got another little section here that are called dreams and images. I won't bother with that. I just want to read this because it may be helpful. Themes in deep self-exploration. Venus-Pluto transits help people to face and clear out issues around jealousy, betrayal, or sexual abuse from their pasts. They also bring elements of love and kindness to the death rebirth process, as journeys find ways to tolerate and even enjoy feelings of suffering as the negative material is being released from their psyches. I love that. That's really beautiful. And I can absolutely relate to that as a core theme in my life throughout all my relationships. Just gonna dim a little bit of the intensity of that light. So those are, some of the core themes that we can all think about relative to this Venus-Pluto transit. And the really powerful component here is that they are opposite each other. An opposition is wonderful. That's just a neighbor's dog. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's got a lot of anxiety. The opposition is what helps you see, right? It literally just helps you see. Where the conjunction, you couldn't see. We can't see with the conjunction. Can you see the new moon in the sky? When there's a sun-moon conjunction, you can't see it, right? That's a conjunction. The opposition is the full moon. Can you see the full moon in the sky? Of course you can. That's what an opposition holds. That's why oppositions are the most powerful aspects in order to promote objectivity, clarity, awareness, clear seeing, development, evolution. Because they help us see in ourselves, in our lives, in our circumstances, our stories, the things that would otherwise remain unconscious, unseeable, unable to understand it. So oppositions are just such a powerful aspect for seeing things very, very clearly. Now, you might not like what you see, but that's not the point. Because even if you don't like what you see, you've got a choice to take action, to reflect, to understand better, more deeply, to have more clarity. If you don't have awareness about something, then you're in a position where you might be sensing it or feeling it, which is the conjunction, but you can't act on it. You can't take a particular course of action or make specific choices because you can't see it. You don't know what to do. So when you can see it, which is an opposition, it empowers you to see whatever is there, for better or for worse, and to take the appropriate course of action. So if it is something you don't like, at least now you can recognize that. That's empowerment, self-empowerment, authentic self-empowerment. You might experience this in a very different way, in a more elevated, conscious and higher way, which would just speak to the realization, the awareness of how much you yourself has transformed in your world of relationships, in your sense of self-worth and value, the position you hold in your relationships, and just the transformation that has occurred in your life through the actions that you have taken, the reflections you have had, the choices you have made, how you have grown in the different relationships you have. So the opposition brings all that to light. So it's a wonderful, this is a really powerful aspect. And, it does have the darker shadow side. That's always going to be there. Everything in this 3D dimension has a polarity, cannot be any other way. So when we're seeing one thing, the opposite to that is always there as well. It's just that we, depending on where we are and how much awareness we have and what's going on in our life, will depend on which end of the spectrum we are sitting, whether we are sitting with the shadow, difficult angst, whatever it is, conditions about it, or whether we are sitting at a more higher level from a sense of clarity and seeing how much we have grown within ourselves. Now, you know, for women, this is a tremendously powerful portal for your own evolution. Venus is women. It's not men, it's women. Sorry, but it is women. However, Venus in a man's chart obviously is going to describe the women in his life, all women that this man has connections to, but it will also describe his own Venusian nature. Men have a Venusian nature about them as well. It just seems to be, for the most part, more obvious in a woman, because a woman is a feminine, female, biological being, right? And Venus, for the most part, is a woman, is a female. And I say that because, and I'll bring this up when I do my next webinar, in Venus's historical myths, going back to the Mayan periods and times, cultures, peoples, indigenous peoples, you know, all that sort of stuff. Venus is, well, do I talk about it now? I'll just say this. There was a moment where Venus actually was a man. Now that might, you know, if you've not heard that before and you don't know where that comes from, you might think, what the fuck? Did you just say that? Yeah, I did. And I'll explain all that when I do my webinar on Venus and the Babylonian components of Venus and the journey of Inanna, because it actually corresponds to that. Anyway, we'll leave that aside for a moment. And that, however, really corresponds to the Venus star point, okay, that component of Venus. But natal Venus, which is what we're looking at here, we're looking at the transit of Venus, our natal chart. I'd be more inclined to say that natal Venus operates very differently to the Venus star points, and certainly very differently to the Babylonian Venus pentagram as well, which holds that historical point. So this portal of Venus-Pluto can be a powerful opportunity for clear seeing and awareness in our own lives about our own personal growth and sense of worth and value within ourselves and within all our relationships, whether you are a man or a woman or anywhere in between. Because everyone has a Venusian, everyone has Venus in their chart. So everyone has a Venusian character within them. So that's the main drill here with this particular configuration. And this is then going to follow through into Venus retrograde, which, as I said, I'm going to come back and talk about, because I've got a lot to say about that. But I wanted to bring this up today because I think it's important to take advantage of being very present with this portal as it appears, which it begins on the 6th of June. It'll be the 5th of June for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. And I mean, you know, the other thing is that if we, let me just animate the chart, and I just want to show you. We can go back to here and here, and yeah, I'd go to about that point there. You could even go back further if you wanted to. Feel into it, you know. What date is that? 3rd of June. Just before the full moon. So what I'm getting at is that the distance between them, even though Venus is applying to an opposition, and applying aspects are more powerful than separating. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Something is building, perhaps is a better way to say this. There's something powerful building with an applying aspect. And then when it's separating, it's still powerful, but it's moving away because Venus is going to separate with her opposition to Pluto, right? So applying, something is building, creating, has been. And then as she separates, it sort of starts to dissipate the energy. So, yeah, I mean, you can think about everything that I said today from about this date here, 3rd of June, and go right through to, that's when she's exactly opposite Pluto. And then you can take it really, realistically, you can take it to about here. No, actually, because Pluto's moving to Capricorn. So let me correct that. Oh, that's right, 12th of June. Yeah, so Pluto goes back to the 29th degree. So I'm not used to looking at myself on that side. I don't look at myself, I just look at the camera. But when I'm over this side, for some reason, my eyes go there. Pluto goes back into Capricorn on the 12th of June because Pluto's retrograde. It's going to go right back to the 27th degree. I've spoken about that. So they're still kind of opposite each other here, but out of sign opposition. So what am I getting at? I'd say from the 3rd of June to say about the 12th of July, June rather, you know, about a week's time, that portal of Venus-Pluto is pulsating, it's palpable. It's very, 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 very powerful to do the work if you so wish. As I said, it'll most likely, in most cases, it will be one or the other, but there will be many cases where it's a bit of both or somewhere in between. What I mean by that is, for some people, it'll be like a clear crystal awareness of where I have come in my transformational journeys in the context of all my relationships. And really, you know, that's something to celebrate, you know, that's something to embrace and celebrate and enjoy and really, you know, just soak it up, just be present with the awareness of that, right? With the growth and the work that you have done on yourself. And if it is at the other end of the spectrum where it's bringing up things that you are not happy with, that you don't like, well, that's just as good, because at least you're seeing it and you can actually take some action towards that, make some different choices. And if, as I said, it could be a bit of both. So that there's possibility for numerous ways of it manifesting, as it were. But wherever it sits on that spectrum for you, it's extremely powerful wherever it sits. And so for about a week's time, you can use that time to be very aware of this energy of Venus-Pluto and sit with that energy, reflect on it, you know, call in the goddess Venus, you know, to meditate, create an altar, whatever it is you want to do, and just ask the energy to speak to you directly and what it is that you need to become more aware of? What is it that you need to see, maybe that you are not seeing? You can do that for a week. And I'm sure if you did that with conscious intention for a week, you'd end up having some pretty profound revelations, insights into yourself from the point of view of how you relate and share with all those around you. There is the artistic side, the creative side, artistic side, which you just apply. It's the same two planets, same aspect, same energy, same portal. So then we can bring that over, that lens, and focus it into our creative field, our creative life, our creative expression journeys, and so forth. This might be a really powerful time to really transform that, or really take it to a next level. Venus in Leo, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful heart-centered energy with the most powerful potential for creative juice. It is square the nodes, as I said at the very beginning. So the square to the nodes, what I feel that highlights for all of us is, once again, and Pluto is the ruler of the South Node, and Pluto is opposite Venus, right? And Venus is the ruler to the North Node. So that's got to be pretty important. The two planets opposite each other, let me just bring it back to their exact oppositions. So back to there. So the two planets that are opposite each other are squaring the nodal axes, and they are the planets that rule the nodal axes. That's pretty telling, right, in terms of the power and the importance of this particular configuration, this grand cross in fixed signs. Because the nodes, the transiting nodes at least, are speaking to the collective evolution for sure, on all the different levels that has been going on the past, almost 18 months. But at a personal level, these nodes are speaking to our own personal evolution within the archetypes of Scorpio and Taurus, which is, there's so much transformation that's been going on for all of us individually and then collectively, and the release of so many past Scorpio themes, Scorpio type behaviors and themes in our life. So I guess the fact that Venus and Pluto are squaring the nodes during their opposition together, it's going to bring in the intensity of that journey that we've been on from South Node in Scorpio to North Node in Taurus, which is the release of numerous old emotional patterns, psychological, deep emotional psychological patterns that haven't been healthy, for instance, into Taurus, which is, really taking us into a direction of, well, I think finding new ways to create sustainable resources collectively and individually. And on an emotional, psychological level, it's integrating into a path where we can be more stable and more grounded in our own psychology, emotionality, and physical body. Because Scorpio South Node can drag up and take us into these tunnels of this enormous emotional web with past contacts, relationships, and so forth. That's deep, complex, that has, painful memories attached to it, all sorts of stuff. And we can get caught in that emotional web. And sometimes we've cleared that and we've moved away from it, but others sort of come back, and sometimes it feels like they're trying to pull us back into that, you know. There's all sorts of complex themes, but the fact that Venus and Pluto are squaring this nodal axis is bringing it to a real climax here of the recognition of how much have I really evolved through this Scorpio Taurus axis of the nodes being in these signs over the last 18 months. And what is it that perhaps I still further need to recognize? So the opposition here is going to help us see more clearly what residue is still lying here in this south node in Scorpio, and how we can go get even closer to that north node in Taurus. And it is Venus Pluto, so it is the soul, and it is our heart Venus, and how we are radiating that love heart center within us, Venus in Leo. So yeah, the nodes are just going to, I think, amplify the intensity of this opposition and just show us the direction, because the opposition brings awareness, clarity, seeing. Full moon, you can see it. So it'll be very interesting to hear from all of you as this comes up and moves on. I'd love to hear your comments, whether you do have some experiences that connect to these themes I've highlighted today. And I'll be back soon with Venus retrograde in Leo, which is a big one. And that's what I wanted to say when I was saying before about the fact that this aspect, this portal, is really there for about a week or so. It can be very, very valuable to be very conscious and aware of what comes up and how you choose to work through it. Because then when Venus goes retrograde, whatever's come up at this time through this opposition, and whatever choices and actions you make or things you think about and so forth, it's all going to be taken into her retrograde cycle in Leo. And I'll come back to talk about that. So I'll see you guys very soon. Hope you enjoyed what I offered today. And yeah, happy full moon for the, what is it, 4th, 5th of June, isn't it? Yeah. So it's coming up in a few days' time in Sagittarius. I've already spoken about that. Feel free to check out that video if you haven't. And email me if you have any questions for readings or things like that, or if you're interested in my Venus webinar that I did a few months ago, because this next webinar that I'm going to do on Babylonian astrology regarding Venus, it will be useful to have done the previous webinar, to have that knowledge under your belt, as it were, before we go into what's quite a complex exploration into Venus from a Babylonian view. Okay, I'll see you guys soon. Much love. Bye.